Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Neville and I'm a manifestation and soul realignment coach. My channel is geared towards helping you become your highest potential so that you can create and live the extraordinary life that is your birthright. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the law of thought transmission, what it's about and what it means. But before we get started, just a reminder that I do offer both email and video coaching. So if you're looking for help in manifesting your desires or you don't know where you're going wrong, then I can definitely help you with that. The information is all in the description below. And of course, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon in order to receive a notification anytime I upload a new video. So let's get started. The law of thought transmission is covered in chapter 5 of Neville Goddard's book, Prayer, the Art of Believing. The law says that anytime you think about another person or you affirm for another person, they are receiving it. You essentially activate something within them that causes them to think and behave in the way you are affirming for them. So when you affirm my SP loves me, my daughter listens to me, my boss values my work, you reproduce in them what was mentally affirmed by you. And they do not realize that the cause is coming from you. They think that this is something that's coming from them. Now, Neville spoke about the thought transmission and compared it to the photophone. The photophone is essentially a telecom device, which is the earliest versions of the wireless invented by Alexander Bell, and it allows the transmission of sound on a beam of light versus electricity for the telephone. And he explains in the book how that actually works, how the photophone works. And I explain it here just so that you can understand the similarities between how the law of thought transmission works in comparison to the photophone. It's no different. So here, let's look at this example of you being the sender of the sound, speaking into the photophone. What happens is the sound vibrations cause a vibration in a mirror that is attached to the device, thereby modifying the light reflected on it through the sun. That modification in light is then reflected in the mirror of the receiving device. What ends up happening is that modified light, which holds basically the mechanical correlate of your speech, is then reproduced as your speech based on the light modification. Of course, this is a very simplified version of how it's all happening. But if you were to look at it with respect to thought transmission, it is no different, because what is happening is your vibrating mind modifies the light of consciousness reflected on it. So when you're thinking about someone, it is causing a modification in the light of consciousness, what we call the one consciousness, which here is symbolic of the sun, because we are all one and we are all part of this one consciousness. And then that modified light of consciousness reaches the one to whom it is directed and impinges on the mirror of their mind, exactly as you can see here in the diagram. And what ends up happening is you're causing their mind to vibrate according to the modification it undergoes, reproducing in them what was mentally affirmed by you. And in the book, Neville says that all men are sufficiently sensitive to reproduce your beliefs of them. Therefore, if your word is not reproduced visibly in him toward whom it is sent, the cause is to be found in you, not in the subject. As soon as you believe in the truth of the statement affirmed, results follow. The idea is, let's say you are wanting to get your daughter to listen more to you, or you want any change in behavior in someone where they have acted something completely different in the past and you want them to start behaving a different way. The idea is that you must believe that that is possible. Now, do you have to believe that they are a changed person right away in order to manifest it? No. This is where we can interpret Neville's quote or phrase in which he says, as soon as you believe in the truth of the state affirmed, results follow. You don't necessarily need to believe it, but you must be willing to believe that change in them can happen through the inner work you're doing, through manifesting, and then remaining faithful to the truth of the state affirmed. You remain faithful by saturating your mind with that truth, affirming, keeping track of your mental diet, really holding a strict mental diet, not opposing what it is that you want to see happen. This is further explained by Neville in the following paragraph. The word spoken subjectively in quiet confidence will always awaken a corresponding state in the one in whom it was spoken. However, there is a catch. Actually, there are two catches. The first is, he writes in the book, but the moment its task is accomplished, it ceases to be, permitting the one in whom the state is realized to remain in the consciousness of the state affirmed or to return to his former state. This is the key here, to remain in the consciousness of the state affirmed or return to his former state. So there is the potential for that person to return to their former state, which is the opposite of what it is you're affirming, because it's all about where you are predominantly in your state of consciousness. So whether or not they remain in that state is really all up to you. And here we want to explain what your state of consciousness really represents. It represents what you're predominantly believing, saying, and thinking. And believing, that you don't have to believe it right away. You have to believe in what you're doing, in the work that you're doing. But meanwhile, you are impressing this into your subconscious mind so that it becomes a belief. So you're affirming, and you're also making sure that you have a strict mental diet so that you are not going in opposition to what you want. Really, this is the state of consciousness, what you are predominantly believing, saying, and thinking. He goes on to say, you have nothing to do but convince yourself of the truth of that which you desire to see manifested. So if you're wanting to see some change, let's say in your SP or in a family member, you want to remain faithful to the truth of what you want to see manifested. You do that by ignoring the current reality, by persisting in your new assumptions through affirmations, through a strict mental diet, and you do not react to current circumstances. So when your daughter is not listening to you, you don't spiral and react to that and get angry. Or when your specific person is not showing you the love that you desire, again, you do not react. You just persist with quiet confidence. You persist with quiet confidence, as Neville mentioned. Now, here comes the second catch. The subject has no power to resist your controlled subjective ideas of him unless the state affirmed by you to be true of him is a state he is incapable of wishing as true of another. In that case, it returns to you, the sender, and will realize itself in you. So here, people often misinterpreted this to mean the other person has free will. Here, it's very important to understand what is really meant by this phrase, because it is not saying that. Here, it is really speaking about intentionally harming another in an objective sense. So, for example, wishing them to be ill, sending them wishes of being sick or poverty or any of that. It is essentially, when you do that, you cannot but activate that within you as well, because everything is a mirror. Here it is super important to understand the meaning of this. So of course, you cannot wish harm, objective harm, When we say objective, we mean any form of disease or poverty towards someone else and not have that come back to you. But this is not the big part of the second catch. The second catch really boils down to another aspect which Neville goes on to explain. He said, to awaken a state within another, it must be first awake within you. The state you would transmit to another can only be transmitted if it is believed by you. So here, what we're saying is, if I am affirming for someone else, let's take an example of a specific person. If I am affirming, my SP loves me, my SP wants me, my SP chooses me, but I do not feel lovable, I do not think I'm worthy, I do not feel I'm chosen, then that person cannot mirror that back to me. It just does not work. So he cannot want what you don't want of yourself. He cannot reflect to you what you do not reflect in and of yourself. So what will end up happening, if you affirm only for your SP, you may either not get results or you might get inconsistent results, hot and cold behavior. That is why I mentioned in one of my videos that it is not enough to affirm for your specific person only. You must affirm for your self-concept first and foremost. I will link this above so that you can watch that video. So essentially what Neville is saying is, that person cannot want from you what you don't want of yourself. They cannot mirror to you what you do not think of yourself. So if you're saying my SP loves me and my SP prioritizes me, my SP chooses me, and you're not feeling worthy of all that, and you do not love yourself first and foremost, and you do not feel whole and complete, then they cannot mirror that back to you. The correct way is to first affirm for yourself what you think of yourself, what you believe of yourself. And you start to believe this through repetition, through affirmations. You repeat, I am lovable, I am worthy, I am chosen. Whatever it is you want to see in your other person is what you need to affirm for yourself. So if you're saying my SP loves me, you must say I am lovable. If you want your SP to want you, you say I am worthy. If you want your SP to choose you, you must say I am chosen. It's all about feeling it within yourself, because then they must then reflect that back to you. And when you affirm for them, you not only activate that within them, as we mentioned previously, that state remains within them. Because we said that either it can, going back to that phrase, we say either he will remain in the consciousness of the state affirmed, or he will return to his former state. So even if you are affirming for that other person and you don't believe it in yourself, you might activate something within them to think of you. They may actually reach out to you, but it will not be consistent. That's why you have the hot and cold. This is where it's super important that you work on your self-concept, so that becomes your new state of consciousness. We go back and say what you're predominantly believing about yourself, what you're saying about yourself, and what you're thinking about yourself. It's not just what you're predominantly believing, saying, and thinking about them. It's also what you think about yourself. We conclude with this phrase or quote from the book: before it can be transmitted, it must first be awake within the transmitter. Whatever is awake within your consciousness, you are. Whether the belief pertains to self or another does not matter, for the believer is defined by the sum total of his beliefs or subconscious assumptions. So whatever it is you believe about them, whatever it is you believe about yourself, must ultimately be reflected. But it's not enough to believe something of them. You have to believe it of yourself as well. I hope you liked this video. If you did, then please do hit the thumbs up and leave me a comment. This will help my message spread, and I do look forward to seeing you again in the next video.